Hey folks, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, my name is Kara, and this is going to be the first video in my true crime series that I'm doing. I have a few other series on my channel. One is a ghost series that involves around ghosts in the LGBT community. Another series is my wife's cake decorating series. If you're into those sort of things, check back on my other videos, and I hope you enjoy this one. Today's video is going to be about the murder of Dee Dee Blancharde and her daughter Gypsy Rose Blancharde. The mother and daughter duo currently lived in Missouri at the time this case took place. Dee Dee Blancharde was born Claudette Petrie in Chicopee, Louisiana in 1967. She lived with her family in Golden Meadows with her 6 other siblings. She was described as slightly rebellious, with a few minor dings to her record, as in petty theft, as described by her siblings, just another thing that happened when Dee Dee didn't get her way. However, those small dings to her record didn't cause her to get into too much trouble, as in her early adulthood she became a nurse's aide. It became her passion to care for those who were ill. She even took care of her mother in the last years of her life. When she was 24, she met 17-year-old Ron Blanchard, and the two became pregnant and quickly got married right after they found out. However, right before Gypsy was born, Ron decided to divorce Dee Dee, and stating that he realized he just wasn't getting married to her for the right reasons. She took Gypsy right after she was born and moved in with her family back in Louisiana. Dee Dee lived with her brother at the time that Gypsy was a newborn. Even though Gypsy was born premature, her brother described Gypsy to not have any physical ailments, even though Dee Dee was convinced that her daughter had multiple ailments, including sleep apnea. She started to get Gypsy tested at the local medical center, and in doing so also said that Gypsy had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and hearing and sight problems. She said all those ailments were due to her having a chromosomal defect that was unspecified at the time. When Gypsy was 7 or 8 years old, she was riding with her grandfather on a motorcycle, and the two got into a small accident. However, she got a small abrasion on her knee. Dee Dee then claimed that the abrasion was so bad it caused her to lose her ability to walk, and was then from that point on confined to a wheelchair. Gypsy had ceased going to school when she was past kindergarten and was then homeschooled by Dee Dee. When Gypsy's father got married to his new wife, Dee Dee then moved in with her dad and her stepmother. When Dee Dee and Gypsy lived with the dad and the stepmother, the dad claimed that the stepmother was being slowly poisoned by Dee Dee with Roundup weed killer. Her health quickly took a decline, and when the dad accused Dee Dee of doing so, she took Gypsy and quickly left to Slidewell, where they lived in public housing and paid for bills with public assistance due to Gypsy's medical needs. When Gypsy was at these medical centers getting all these testing done, the testings came back negative for most things that Dee Dee needed her tested for, including muscular dystrophy and leukemia. However, this didn't stop Dee Dee from seeking treatments for her daughter for these specific ailments. She even got her on anti-seizure medication, which, if you don't know much about anti-seizure medication, is an intense medication that would be crazy to take if you weren't actually suffering from seizures. Gypsy also had a lot of surgeries done during this time, including Botox put in her salvia glands so she would not drool, and tubes put in her arm to help with chronic ear infections. However, Gypsy now claims that she had no drooling problem, and that her mother would shoot her with anesthesia in her gums before she would go to dentist to recreate the drooling effect. So she would convince them that she has a drooling problem in need of these surgeries. While having all these surgeries and giving all these medications to her daughter, Hurricane Katrina hit and their apartment was destroyed. They then were informed that they should probably move back to Missouri, in which they did. They were airlifted back to Missouri, and Habitat for Humanity built them a new home. At this time, Gypsy was also awarded Child of the Year in 2007 and was honored by the Olay Foundation, which was a foundation which included advocates for children with feeding tubes. All of these awards and charity that was being done for them gave them a lot of attention from the media and the local community around them. They kind of became stars of that community. Everybody knew who they were, and they got a lot of treatment out of it. Gypsy herself got trips to the Ronald McDonald House. They also got trips to Disney World. They were also given backstage passes and concert tickets to Miranda Lambert concerts from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Gypsy's father also tried to remain in Gypsy's life by paying child support regularly and constantly giving her calls, trying to set up times to meet. However, Dee Dee was not too keen on this. Dee Dee would start to change plans last minute just so her father wouldn't see her, and would stop allowing him to give her regular phone calls. She also told the community around her that Gypsy's dad was a drug addict and was not able to cope with that, and was not able to cope with the idea that his daughter was in need of serious medical attention. So the community thought that her dad was a deadbeat and that Dee Dee was a saint for caring for her sick daughter. On her 18th birthday, the dad tried calling her, but Dee Dee quickly, before he could even say happy birthday to her, said, "Don't tell her she's 18. And he's like, "Why not?" And she said, "Because she thinks she's 14. And personally, I think that the dad should have thought this was kind of a red flag. But also in his defense, Dee Dee told everyone around her that Gypsy had a mental capacity of a 7-year-old and was not able to comprehend things like that. So he thought maybe it would be something that was for her own emotional sake to not let her know that she was older than she is. Gypsy also did look like she had all the disabilities and ailments that her mother claimed. She had a shaved head for all of her life. Whenever she'd go out in public, she'd be in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank and feeding tubes. And you think, reading about all of this, if she didn't have any medical testing to support these diagnoses, how was she getting all of this treatment? Like severe treatment that, if you don't have these illnesses, would be insane to have. Well, one of her doctors thought this too. His name was Bernardo Flasterstein. I am sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Bernardo Flasterstein. But he was a doctor who was currently treating Gypsy at the time and was kind of suspicious about all of the surgeries and treatments she was getting. And at the time, Dee Dee claimed that all of her medical records, including Gypsy's birth certificate, was lost in Hurricane Katrina. So all of these doctors were kind of just taking her word for this. Well, that wasn't good enough for him. He started to grow suspicious and sent tests for her to at least check up on if she really did have muscular dystrophy. That test came back negative. So he contacted the doctor in Louisiana and asked if those tests had come back positive, and they affirmed that those tests initially came back negative. So he brought this up to Dee Dee Blancharde, saying, all of the things you say your daughter has, she doesn't seem to have. And Dee Dee got very angry and then stopped taking Gypsy to that doctor. That doctor should have come forward to authorities with this, because giving your child serious medical treatments when they don't need it is a form of child abuse. However, he was told by the other doctors in the community to treat this pair with golden gloves, as no one in the law enforcement would even believe him anyways, because they were such well-known members of the community. However, an anonymous caller did ring up the authorities in that area, claiming that they need a wellness check done on Dee Dee and Gypsy, saying that they know Gypsy is not the age that Dee Dee claims she is, and that she doesn't have any of these physical ailments that the mom claims she has. The police did so and said that everything was normal and that she does seem to have these physical disabilities, and chalked it up to just possibly Dee Dee's ex-husband trying to get back into their lives or cause trouble. However, behind the scenes, Gypsy was being severely abused by her mother. Gypsy claims now that while in public, her mother would constantly be holding her hand, and that if Gypsy said anything to allude to the fact that she wasn't actually sick, her mother would pinch her hand and squeeze it to tell her to, shut up. Gypsy also claimed that her mother would constantly physically abuse her with slaps to the face or slaps to the face with a coat hanger if she ever did anything wrong. But now at this point, Gypsy would be well into her early 20s, and as any woman in their early 20s, she would start seeking her independence from the situation. She would oftentimes try to meet people through the internet as her only escape to have any contact with the outside world, where she can try to be who she really was. She was talking to a guy on the internet, slightly publicly, enough for people around to assume that that guy was taking advantage of a severely disabled underage girl, and a group of people who knew about Gypsy and Dee Dee's situation then assaulted this young man. Gypsy, obviously distraught, quickly went over to a neighbor's house without her wheelchair and asked them to drive her to the hospital. They did so, and she showed up to the hospital and tried showing the authorities there that she had documentation that she was of legal age. However, her mother quickly showed up, said that that certificate of her age was a mistake that was given to them after Hurricane Katrina, and she was actually underage, and then showed them fake documents claiming that she was underage. She then apparently made Gypsy publicly apologize to everyone there and took her home. Gypsy also used to go to Comic-Con conventions with her mother frequently. At one of these conventions, she managed to escape with another guy that she had met on the internet. Dee Dee found them in a hotel room where she tried showing the guy that Gypsy is underage, here's these documents, and then said that she was going to call the police if they didn't have Gypsy go with her at that moment. Gypsy then went with her and they went home. And then when they got home, Dee Dee tied her up to the bed and then smashed her computer and threatened to smash Gypsy's hands the same way she smashed the computer if she ever tried to escape again. She also told Gypsy that she filed paperwork with the police station stating that Gypsy had a mental capacity of a 7-year-old and that if she ever tried telling authorities, they wouldn't believe her anyways. This didn't stop Gypsy from still continuing to try to meet people on the internet. During the night when her mother was asleep, she went on the internet and met a man named Nicholas Gojan. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that last name wrong. Gojane. The two quickly struck up a romantic conversation, and it kind of turned into this relationship that they were having over the internet. Nicholas had a record of his own for indecent exposure and a few minor misdemeanors. He also was said to be somewhere on the autism spectrum, and the two actually met on a Christian mingle site, which I find very interesting, as both were Catholic and had a lot of similar interests. However, their conversations, Gypsy now claims, mostly involved sexual talk and things about BDSM, which she claims now was more of something that he was into. However, Gypsy planned for them to meet in person. She had devised this plan that the two would accidentally bump into each other at a movie theater when she was with her mom. So then she can be like, oh, look at this guy I'm dating now. And it would be more of a natural thing to her mom, so her mom wouldn't be as suspicious that she actually met him on the internet when she wasn't supposed to. This plan actually happened and the two did meet at the theater. However, the mom didn't really like him and said that he seemed creepy. Despite this, Gypsy then took him to the bathroom and they shared an intimate moment there. However, Gypsy now claims that she thought he wasn't as desirable in person as he was over the internet. But nonetheless, that didn't matter. She still needed him to escape from the situation she was at home. The two after that quickly started devising a plan for him to kill her mother. She also confided in her neighbor, Aaliyah Woodsman, who was 24 at the time, that she had a boyfriend and that they're gonna elope and they have all these children names picked out and that's gonna be so amazing. And at the time the neighbor was thinking, you're underage, like this is not a good idea, maybe you should start talking to him, but didn't take it all seriously because she assumed that Gypsy was a lot younger than her, even though she was actually probably only about a year younger than her at that point. Talk of killing Gypsy's mother became serious and Gypsy devised an actual day for the crime to take place. She had Nicholas go over to her house where she said that she had set up duct tape, gloves, and a knife for him at the door. He then told her to go into the bathroom and plug her ears, which she did, and then he went into the bedroom and stabbed her mother to death. The two then escaped to a nearby motel in Springfield where they were caught on multiple security cameras of Gypsy walking into the hotel and exiting the hotel, and at a lot of local stores where she was also seen at surveillance there. They later boarded a Greyhound bus back to Nick's house, but before doing so, they mailed the murder weapon to Nick's house in order to not be caught with the murder weapon. As you can see, that's kind of an immature way of thinking, but they obviously both didn't have the mental capacity at the time to really know what they were getting into. They thought that the body needed to be found, so Gypsy took to her Facebook to post crude Facebook posts about her mother being dead and her being raped, in order to spike suspicion of people on the Facebook and possibly have them call the police, in which they did. People saw these Facebook posts and immediately freaked out, thinking that this is a mother who's caring for her severely sick daughter and that someone had at least hacked their Facebook or something could be possibly wrong. They drove by the house and saw that Dee Dee's car, which was rigged to hold Gypsy's wheelchair, was still there, looked through the windows and saw that Gypsy's wheelchair was still there, but didn't see anyone and no one was answering the door. They called the police and the police quickly got a warrant and then went into the house and found Dee Dee's dead body and no Gypsy. They assumed that Gypsy was possibly kidnapped and a nationwide search ensued at that point. The neighbor that Gypsy had previously spoken to about her secret boyfriend alerted to the authorities of this secret boyfriend, and they tracked the IP address of the Facebook post back to Nick's house. They found Gypsy and Nick there and took them both into custody. While in custody, Nick confessed to murdering Dee Dee at the request of Gypsy herself. Gypsy at first tried to act like she had no idea what was going on, but then after a lot of questioning and the authorities basically saying, We saw you on the security cameras of you walking. You're obviously walking now, and you're with this guy, you know what's going on. She then confessed that she did know what was going on, and then they went into details of the murder. A press conference was held, and they said that Gypsy was found, and people were very excited. However, then the sheriff said that things are not as they seem and that Gypsy was never actually sick, and to hold off on donating to any GoFundMe accounts until they can look more into the investigation. They then realized that Gypsy was never sick, and Gypsy told the police about all of the treatments and surgeries. They found out about Gypsy's real age, and then put the pieces together and realized that the mother was lying this entire time that her daughter was sick. They also looked more into Dee Dee's past and realized that it is quite possible that while she was caring for her sick mother, she could have been the reason that she had died as well. And then looked into the time that she was caring for the stepmother, and that the stepmother also fell ill while in her care, and then once Dee Dee left, she miraculously got better. Gypsy told the authorities about all the abuse that she ensued, and then they realized that Dee Dee could have been someone who suffered from Munchausen by proxy syndrome. Munchausen syndrome, which is the syndrome that Munchausen by proxy derives from, is a syndrome where someone has to fake being ill or sick in suit to get attention or monetary value from it. Munchausen by proxy is essentially the same. However, instead of pretending to be sick themselves, they put that on someone that they're caring for, either an elderly parent or most of the time a child. Because of these extreme circumstances, they both decided that Gypsy and Nicholas were not going to be sought for the death penalty. However, Nicholas was going to be charged with first-degree murder and Gypsy with second-degree murder. Gypsy took a plea deal where she would only be charged with second-degree murder and was then given the sentence of 10 years in prison. Nicholas, however, was given a life sentence in prison, which was kind of the only thing he could get, as they didn't seek out the death penalty, which would be the other thing that he would receive. Both were obviously guilty. Nicholas's defense claimed that because he was autistic and that he focused so much on him and Gypsy's relationship, it clouded his judgment. Gypsy's defense said that because she was being pumped with so much medication, including Xanax, that she didn't have the mental capacity to really understand what was going on at the time of the murders. And plus, she was suffering so much abuse, she couldn't be held accountable for this. Personally, I agree. I kind of think that Gypsy shouldn't have even gotten that much prison sentence. I think that it would have been better if she went to more of a rehabilitation center, as she was a victim and she technically didn't commit the crime herself. Nicholas did. On Nicholas, I think that probably a prison sentence would have been appropriate, but probably not a life sentence. However, Gypsy is apparently thriving in prison now. She said that being in prison is better than living with her mother, as she can finally be who she truly is. She now has a great relationship with her father and her stepmother, and that they're all reconnecting their relationship and are looking forward to when Gypsy gets out of prison in her early 30s. She claims that while in prison, she was able to look up Munchausen by proxy syndrome and now understands what was going on with her mother. She said that her mother probably would have been a great mother to someone who was actually sick. However, she just really wasn't sick, and that the abuse she suffered is going to be something that she's going to have with the rest of her life. I could not imagine the abuse that Gypsy Rose Blancharde went through. She had feeding tubes constantly in her. Feeding tubes are something that hurts to be put in and taken out, especially if you're not put under any anesthesia, which she claims that she did not have. And constantly having to be confined to a wheelchair even though she knows she can walk. Gypsy thought she was 18, even though her mother told everyone she was 14, but she was actually 23. She's born in 1991. Even though Gypsy knew that she didn't have certain things like muscular dystrophy, she knew she could walk, she really did thought she had leukemia. And she was scared that she was going to die. I couldn't imagine the mental anguish that was. I really hope that Gypsy Rose Blancharde is doing well and that when she gets out, she's able to live a fulfilled life. This case has boggled my mind for so long. It came out a little over a year ago, but it got more media attention recently because there's a new movie from Hulu called The Act, which features Joey King and Patricia Arquette, which looks so amazing, and if you weren't planning on viewing it, definitely do so. There's also an HBO special about this case and then a Lifetime movie. It's definitely a case that is so interesting to look into, and I had a lot of fun researching and making it. If you liked other true crime videos like this, let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to make more. Thank you so much and have a great day.